faster than a speeding typewriter, more powerful than a printing press, able to speak over tall buildings in a single sound. Look, up on the dial!
It's a conservative!
It's a liberal! It's Supermouth! Yes, it's Supermouth, strange visitor from the past with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal talk show hosts. Supermouth, who can change the course of local politics, bend ears with his bare mouth, and who, disguised as Mike Wiley, mild-mannered reporter for a great metropolitan radio show, fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way.
Good morning, and welcome to another adventure into podcast radio. I am your host, the evil Mike Wiley. Okay, so here's the deal. We've been doing this show now for about a little over 2 years. We started out in the beginning calling the show America's Court of Public Opinion because we were trying to present in a legal format all the laws and things that are being done against the United States, which are criminal in nature and done by the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is a criminal organization. There are maybe, I'm going to guess, 30 people between the Congress, between the House and the Senate and the Democratic Party that are Americans. The rest are progressive Confederate scumbags. And that's why we have a problem. Okay? So we've been doing a show, a new show called Upon Further Review, because we started finding more stuff out on Upon Further Review, like the January 6th, when we found out that the judges, the Biden Democrat judges in Washington, D.C. were committing crimes by arresting, by finding people guilty of something that wasn't a crime, because it had nothing to do with documentation. And then the Supreme Court ruled in favor of this one guy that had been fighting it. And we looked into it, and it tied out to everything. And then we discovered even more that there was a Republican judge who was not arresting anybody. He was not finding anybody guilty because he was following the law. Now, why is it that you can have 4 judges in Washington, D.C., 3 Democrat, 1 Republican, and only the Republican follows the law? Why do Democrats violate the law? Because they don't believe in the law. To them, they're a big democracy. And if 9 people in a room say the 10th guy needs to be killed, it's okay. He wanted to vote. But we're a republic. We'll stay a republic. And so I began noticing this map. And I started looking at it. And I started to determine exactly what was going on. And it actually fits with Democrat history. Now, we started a series called The Encyclopedia of Democratic Party Hate of a Free America. And we've done 2 chapters of it. And we're going to do chapters 3, 4, 5, and 6, but in time. Right now, it's more important to get this done. On Monday, we will have a new Republican trifecta: presidency, the Senate, and the House. And normally, when we have that, we have good times in the United States, and it depends on how long those last. Now, the Democrats are totally against Republicans running the country. The Democrats are against Americans being free. And they've done that ever since 1860. A lot of people haven't been paying too much attention, but actually I was pleased today because I was looking at 2 state movements, and I did find in their documentation that they were referring to the West Virginia secession. The only thing is I don't see where they're actually following the process correctly, and they're also making some judgments of how it should be done. And so what I wanted to do is my website's being redone. It's almost done. And we have a section on the 2-state solution because that's what I'm concentrating on. I want to bring this puppy home. Okay? Over the next 2 years, we're going to have at least a trifecta. We know that the Democrats will try to steal the intermediate elections in 2026, just like they did in 2018. And actually, they lost them in 2022, and we took back the Congress. But they needed to get rid of Trump. I mean, they're just, what they've done to Trump and everything is criminal in nature. But it proves that that's what their basis is. Their basis is crime and running their little campaign of democracy. And when you look at the way the country is between red and blue, you'll go, geez, how could Democrats ever win anything if most of if 80% or 83% of the country is Republican? The problem is because there's this thing called congressional districts. And congressional districts can be rearranged by criminal organizations like the Democratic Party. And one of the terms is called gerrymandering, and that's what they do. They gerrymander the district. And so I'm going to give you a perfect example, because the first state I was looking at was California. And we'll start with California today. And now this, I'm going to show this on the video as well. You'll see it. But here's the state of California by district. So you'll see that it looks like it's half and half, blue and half red. The only problem is there's 52 congressional seats coming out of California. But for some reason, the red areas only get 9 of them, and the other 43 are in these blue areas. That's gerrymandering. Now, here's the same state, except this is by county. So as you can see, the counties have more property that are Republican than Democrat, but the Democrats move in and steal their people. And what I mean by stealing their people is they go in and they create the districts so they go into the Republican areas to pull Republicans that they can then apply as voters into majority blue areas. Okay, so this is what they do, and that's how they come up with 43 congressional districts for Democrats and only 9 for Republicans. These are bigger counties. Okay, this is a crime. In the last election, there were 2 Republicans incumbents running in District 13 and District 45. Now, through the whole campaign, through the whole 747,000-day counting of the election, they were leading. They led with 1 minute to go. 1 minute to go, and all of a sudden, enough votes come in so that District 13 could be won by a Democrat by 100 and some odd votes, and then District 45 could be won by about 600 votes. Now, I understand that they're supposedly looking into this. I'm going to look in to see what's going on, because I also read about some other issues in Orange County where 2 other Republican districts that should have been won by Republicans were won by Democrats because of Democrat fun games, yeah. So today, this video, and I'm going to keep it really short, is about the 2-state solution. All right. In 1860, a horrible thing happened to the Democrats. A guy named Abraham Lincoln was elected president. They didn't like that. Okay. So what they did was, as most Democrats do when Republicans are in power, they try to destroy them. They just try to get rid of them because they believe that God has said only Democrats can run this country. Well, actually, what God said was only Democrats should be hanging from trees or sitting in electric chairs getting their due election. Or should I say getting their due election, electric. All right. So California. Now there's a group of people that have already started a movement, and it's called the Great State of New California. Okay. And I was going through their stuff, and I was happy to see that they recognize that they can follow a process established by West Virginia in 1861 and 1863, which I have here. I have the documentation for it, okay, and the things that had to be done, okay. Let's see, that's the Senate Joint Resolution, okay. Petition of citizens from Berkeley and Jefferson counties in favor of the transfer of their counties to West Virginia. This is 1865, after the federal government in 1863 approved West Virginia. Here is a memorial of citizens from Frederick County in favor of the transfer of their county to West Virginia. So you have to create the new state first, get it approved by the Republican Congress, the Republican Senate, and a Republican president, which is what we had in 1860. On Monday, we're going to have it again. Now, there's one thing to understand. Democrats will not stand for that to continue. So they will do whatever they can in 2026 to take back the House and try to take back the Senate. They can't take back the presidency unless they decide to impeach Trump, which they've already done twice, in false pretenses. But none of them have gone to jail yet for that. All the crimes the Democrats have committed in the last 4 years against Trump and the American people, they haven't gone to trial yet. We're hoping that when Pam Bondi gets in, she's gonna go after them, and she's tough, beautiful but tough. So let me just read this to you. Great state of New California proclamation. The citizens of New California have decided to remedy the abuse of power by the government of California by exercising their right to form a new state provided in the United States Constitution, Article 4, Sections 3 and Section 4. We are determined to live under a state government in the United States of America and under the Constitution of the United States. You're only making one mistake. And that one mistake is that you want to separate the state from a specific area to another specific area, not taking into account that you're planning to take maybe taking Democrat districts or Democrat counties and making them part of the new state. That's never going to happen. Why would Democrats want to leave an area they can enslave people in versus crossing over into the red area where people are free? Have you ever heard of the Confederacy? Do you see what the state of this country looks like? See the blue? The blue runs the red. 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 Chicago, Minnesota. Actually, Michigan and Wisconsin, the same thing, but we're not going after them. New York, okay? My proposal is to take 8 states and separate them by political districts and make new states out of them, which is what they can do. And I've got some stuff I found today where the state of New York has actually proposed exactly what I'm proposing, which was interesting because I'm proposing New York be split up into 3 states, 2 being American and 1 being Democrat. Remember, we always have to fight our enemies, foreign and Democrat. The only domestic enemy is the Democrats. There's no others. There's no others. Now, one thing I am going to do, when I did the book 2 of the Democrat hate, I covered something that a lot of people go, come on, Mike, it couldn't have happened. But the Great Depression was fixed. The Great Depression was a campaign, and I've done a show on it. This is book 2, and it's up on Rumble and it's up on YouTube, in which the Democrats had figured out a way to get rid of the Republicans, okay? Remember, Democrats cannot sit back and watch Republicans run the country where taxes are low, everybody's making money, and everybody's happy. They're the only people not happy are the Democrats. So when you have a Republican landslide in 1920, in 1924, in 1928, 3 straight landslides, and the economy is booming, everything's wonderful. What are the Democrats going to do? The Democrats came out with a plan to destroy the United States financially and blame the Republicans. And that worked for some 30, 40 years. 30, 40 years. However, I know you're saying, come on, Mike, you little woo. Okay, there's no way they would have fixed the Great Depression. Too many millions of Americans were affected. People died, people lost their homes, their jobs, everything. It was horrible. Took over 10 years to get back. Well, the interesting part about it was I've got this video of Milton Friedman, and he's a genius financial guru, and he did a little video on why the Great Depression was a hoax. And what happened was the Federal Reserve, which was created by Democrats, they decided to raise interest rates to 6%, contracting the money supply, when inflation was, let's see, now Biden wasn't president then, so inflation must have been like 0 or 1% because Republicans were in there. So in Friedman's video, he explains that if the Federal Reserve had done their job the way they were supposed to, not the way the Democrats wanted them to, there would not have been a Great Depression at all. All right? What would have happened was you would have had this, as he called it, a garden variety recession of about 6 months, which means that it would have come out at about, I'd say, April of 1930, the recession would have been over and things would have been back to work. That doesn't work. The reason is the purpose for the Depression is to get people to go, oh, the Republicans suck. Let's vote Democrat. Okay? The recession would have ended around April of 1930, which was an election year. And then people would have gone, oh, it's just a recession. Things are back to normal. And Democrats wouldn't have been elected. But in this case, 50-some odd Democrats were elected to the House in 1930. And then in 1930, we got Roosevelt and his 10 years of bullshit. And we also got 90-some odd more Democrats in the House. And the Democrats ran the government for some 40 years, from 1930 to basically the Congress. They covered all the way till 1994. They held Congress for 60-some odd years. And in 1928, they wrote this document that basically said everything that they said the Republicans didn't happen. When you read it, you realize what they were doing. They were preparing for something they knew was going to happen. They knew before the 1928 that they were going to go ahead and start this Depression shit. And that's what's hurt the United States. And many millions of people were damaged. But that's the Democratic Party. They don't care how many people. Let's go. 2020, okay? Election fraud. Well, come on. We need to get all these 15 million fake mail-in ballots, and we need to have a reason for people to break the law and allow them to exist, because the Republicans aren't going to allow mail-in ballots without having signatures that match. Except the Democrats did. And so they won the election by killing off about 1.4 million Americans through the pandemic. And many more have died afterwards. Democrats don't care how many Americans must die for them to stay in power and get back into power. Okay? What are the crimes Republican presidents commit? 1, they win by landslide. When you win by landslide, you are to be defeated, impeached, or assassinated. Ronald Reagan won in 1980, and 3 months later, they tried to kill him. And then he won again in 85 and 84, and they didn't try to kill him then, but Trump was going to win by a landslide, so they stole that election, and then they've tried to kill him twice. We're all concerned about Monday because there's rumors and stuff that Iran's going to try to go in and take him out, and this and that, and you know, the Democrats are tied to Iran and China. That's who they represent. They don't represent you. Democrats do not represent Americans. Granted, you can watch these hearings, and you'll notice that maybe 90% of the Democratic senators are pieces of shit, lying pieces of shit. Does the name Schiff, Adam Schiff, make any? Does the name Rubio Gonya strike a familiar note? Does the name Adam Schiff strike a familiar note? So that's what we have to deal with, but we can fix it. My plan is to take these 8 states. That's why it's called the 2-state solution, because you're going to split them in 2. You're going to leave the Democrat districts in the main state. You're not going to change it. But the new state that you're going to secede to, okay, will be Republican, which means the 2 new senators from that state will be Republican. And if we go from 8 states to 9 Republican states, then you're going to have 18 more senators as Republicans in the Senate. And that is ball game. And then you're also going to get back close to 15 House seats that are currently being stolen by the state of California, the state of Illinois, and the state of New York. Okay, now those are the 3 big states. Their governors are the 3 biggest assholes on the planet, and they're the ones always talking tough with Trump. But they're such criminals. All that ends. And what happens is we make a constitutional move, and then we can go through and get rid of the 17th and 16th Amendment. The 17th Amendment gets rid of having millionaires and billionaires elect senators and go back to letting the state legislatures appoint them like the Constitution states. And then you get rid of the 16th Amendment because it's illegal. You can't have a direct tax. You can't have a direct tax. I don't care what anybody says. I know how to read the Constitution. So here we have this group, because I'm going to start. You got to hold on. Let's see. What do we got? Oh, I've only been talking for 21 minutes, so I'm going to try to wrap this up. Okay. So Washington, and when you look into these states and you see about what goes on, okay, like Oregon has had a lesbian governor. She's replaced everybody that's in any kind of government, all Democrats. Do you think these people here on the plantation are being represented? See? Mansions, plantation. See, the mansions are on the water. Yeah, the mansions are on the water or on the lake. Okay? See how they do that? They have no idea this is coming. There's bits and pieces of it. But those of you that are trying to organize these things, call me. Write to me. Let me help you out. Let me help you direct the process. Okay? And I would suggest, and I'm going to write to Speaker Johnson because I'm going to give him my idea and see if he can get involved because he's really good. I know he said make some decisions that we kind of went, ee, but overall, he's working in the right direction. And that's what we need. And we have to get these things done in the next 2 years. And it can be done. It can be done. But we got to go for the long game. Can't keep going for the short game. Okay, the Democrats play long game. They've been playing the same game since 1860. It's just the way it is. So California will give us close to, I think, besides picking up 2 senators in the new state of California, which I'm calling California East. East California will pick up maybe 10 to 15 congressional seats alone, because that will then break up the gerrymandering criminal activity going on by the Democrats. So you pick up 10 House seats in California, you're going to pick up 3 or 4 in Illinois, you're going to pick up at least 4 in New York, maybe even 2 more. The New York judicial system, you're the same group of scumbags that went after Trump, they stole 4 congressional seats through gerrymandering in 2023, and they did that by the judges. The judges ruled it, not the people. That's California. There are 8 states. There's 5 that we're concentrating on right now, and that's Washington, Oregon, California, Illinois, and New York. Okay. Now, Illinois has just started up with something, or at least this is the first time we've seen it. It says New Illinois is a nonprofit organization that educates Illinois citizens about their right to pursue the creation of a new state from the state of Illinois. We are seeking a state split following the process provided for by, and it's the same way that West Virginia split from Virginia. I'm glad to see that they say that, okay? But then they make this stupid mistake. I'm sorry. This divide is not between Democrats and Republicans. It's urban versus rural. It is between Democrats and Republicans. Democrats are the urban. It's the Republicans of the rural. Mansions, plantations. Mansions, plantations. Same program they had in 1860. Okay? Now, with Illinois, you'll see here this blue section of Illinois. This section here actually should be red, but it's blue because of gerrymandering crimes. And these two blue areas, you can see they straighten them out, and they extend them over like a loop or something just to be able to get a congressional seat for Democrats out of Republican areas. But you'll notice there's these little red connections. Okay? They connect these two bodies of county together so they can be considered one. So you have like 4 counties that take up 3/4 of the state. All right, but it's all a Republican area. But because of the gerrymandering, they pull two Democrats out of it. Now the 2 large areas that are Republican, no Democrats run there because they know that it doesn't make sense. They're not going to get the vote. So Illinois is working in the right direction. I'm glad to see this. I'm glad to see that they also talk about the Virginia split from Virginia, but you have to follow the same legal documentation process. Stare decisis. You can say, oh yeah, just like West Virginia did, or you can do it exactly the way West Virginia did, because it's got to go to the federal government to be approved. The President of the United States, the Senate of the United States, the House of the United States has to approve this movement. And you need to have it when it's all Republicans. We got 2 years to go, because in 2026 we have no idea what the Democrats are going to come up with to take over the country. They are our enemies. The Civil War has never ended. They just put a kind of timeout on it. Now, state of New York, I predicted New York would split into 3 sections. And I found this document here about the fact that there was a partition and secession program where they wanted to take Staten Island and Long Island and I guess one other county in eastern Long Island and make it a new state. Well, that's exactly what I proposed. Okay, that's exactly what I proposed. See how they've got it as blue? Okay, but they're actually red now. And a lot of the center area of New York in red is blue. So we're going to work with the state of New York. This is the crucial state. This is the state that has gone after Donald Trump with criminal attorneys, criminal judges, criminal Democrats. We can't allow this stuff to... Remember, while we're fighting the Democrats, we're not making any money. When Democrats get into power, they spend $10 trillion more. Why do you think we're $36 trillion into debt? 20 some odd trillions from Democrats alone. Because spending money is how they gain power. Now, this Greater Idaho movement, forget it. Why take a Republican section of Oregon and just add it to Idaho? You don't get you don't pick up 2 new senators from that. You don't have to do that. You can do the same thing in West Virginia. Okay? You take the 13 counties that wanted to go out. Now, these people, if it's the 13th North, have approved ballot measures in favor of Greater Idaho. Well, I don't know if a ballot measure is the issue. I believe that it's petitions, that each counties have to do it. The recommendation is to find somebody in constitutional law that understands this and understands how to do the paperwork, because that's what you want. And that's one of my goals, is to maybe find some constitutional lawyers to put the paperwork together for everybody, because it's got to be done right. It's got to be done right. The Democrats cheat every day. Okay? We can beat them with the law. And when we beat them with the law, there's nothing they can do once the new states are done. But we have to get it done. We have to get it done while the Republicans are in power. Because you don't know what the Democrats are going to come up with next, okay? If they can come up with the Great Depression and put millions of people out of work, destroy millions of families, just so they could be in power for 40, 50 years, they'll do anything. They'll even come up with a pandemic that will kill 1.4 million people.
There is hardly any view that is more widespread than the view that somehow or other the Great Depression was produced by a failure of private business. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Even at the depth of the Depression in 1933, when, in the spring of that year, the Federal Reserve System, which had been established in order to prevent banking panics and keep banks from closing, when the Federal Reserve System itself closed its doors, and you had a banking holiday for 7 days, and when, over the previous 3 years, a third of the banks of this country closed their doors and went broke because, in my opinion, of the poor policy followed by the Federal Reserve System. The Great Depression was produced, in my opinion, and I may say this is not a random opinion. I will be glad to refer you to a several hundred-page book in which it is documented. I won't tell you who the author is. Mr. Eccles did that. It was produced, the Great Depression was produced by a failure of government, by a failure of monetary policy. It was produced by a failure of the Federal Reserve System to act in accordance with the intentions of those who established it. It was produced by a failure of the Federal Reserve System despite the presence of knowledge on the part of many of the people in the system about the right course of action. And the Federal Reserve, of course, would never admit, never proclaim that it produced the Great Depression. On the contrary. But as an objective scholar, I can tell you what the facts are. The facts were that from 1929 to 1933, the total quantity of money in the United States, the amount of currency, the amount of bank deposits, what Mr. Eccles referred to as M2, that total amount of money declined by 1/3. The total number of banks went down by 1/3. And why did the quantity of money decline? It declined because the Federal Reserve System failed to prevent the decline. The Federal Reserve System could have prevented the decline at all times. There never was a moment during that period when the Federal Reserve did not have the power to prevent the decline in the quantity of money. If it had prevented the decline in the quantity of money, you might still have had a recession, but it would have been a garden variety recession. It would have been over in the middle of 1930 or early in 31 at the latest. It would not have been the major catastrophe, not only for this country but throughout the rest of the world. So the Great Depression was not produced by a failure of business. On the contrary, it was produced by a failure of government, and a failure of government in an area in which responsibility had been assigned to government since the founding of this country.
Okay, this is just a brief video that we're going to have put up on our website so you get an idea of what the two-state solution is. Let me just read this to you. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another. Political bands. Democrats, Republicans are political. The United States and Britain, it was political. And to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. This is our history. separating ourselves from scumbags. Because while we're sleeping at night, raising our family, trying to enjoy life, they're out trying to steal freedom from us every day. So we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to either alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. The rest is history. The two-state solution. Okay? You have my email with this. And let me help you. We got to get this done. I'm going to go ahead and proceed on getting a hold of Mike Johnson. I know he's got a lot of stuff to do. He may look at this and go, "Oh, Mike, you're crazy. We can't do that. They can do it in 1863, but we can't do it now because, you know." Well, I don't know. Okay? It's not that I'm a stubborn bastard. I'm a patriotic American. I cannot stand watching my fellow Americans getting wiped out by a political party that, you know, it's time for them to go. They can stay in their cities, okay, and here's what we figure. We figure that once we complete this exchange, these blue areas will falter and die because Democrats don't know how to manage anything. They don't. Let's see, for an example, let's look at 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. Huh? Joe Biden did a great job. He'll tell you. He's wonderful. These people are so full of shit, it's amazing. You got to get off your ass. You got to work for this. It's doable. And there's people out there starting groundswell movements. They're just not moving in the right direction. And the new Constitution people of California, they think that these Democrat counties are going to, oh yeah, we'll gladly join the Republicans. They're not. Democrats would never join Republicans. They'll shoot us in a shooting war. They'll make us poverty-stricken in the Great Depression. They'll assassinate our leaders. Okay, did you by any chance, any of you see the Democrats, how they acted in these Senate hearings for confirmations? Really? You think Tammy Duckworth and Pocahontas and Adam Schiff and the rest of the half-ass assholes in the U.S. Senate that are Democrats, you listen to them ask questions? Jack Reed? Oh my God, what a bumpkin piece of garbage he is. It was amazing how they attacked Pete Hegseth. They gave us women that are men in military. They gave us women that are, well, I don't know what the hell they are. In one part of government, we had this gay guy who wears a phony bra or phony breasts to breastfeed kids. Those poor children are going to grow up with two whack job fathers without a mother. Let me tell you something. Don't mess with the human race. There's a reason why there's women and there's men. There's a reason why mom is a mom and dad is a dad. Mom gives you the love and companionship of a family, and dad slaps you upside the head when you do stuff wrong. Okay? I was lucky. Yeah, my mom used to drive me nuts, and if I wasn't doing what she said, she'd go to the closet and pull out a metal vacuum cleaner pipe and threaten to smack me with it. She never did. And then she'd say, "Wait till your father gets home." My father was about 6 feet, same height as me. I'm 6'1". He was about 6 feet, about the same size. There's a picture of him on an island during World War II. He fought in the Pacific as a Seabee. And he's standing there, and he's got one guy on this shoulder and one guy on this shoulder. My dad was pretty strong. I never wanted to get a smack from him. I got one once. That's all I needed to smarten up. But he was a good man. He had a good heart, and I love him for it. I am my father's son. You be your father's son. You be your mother's son. You be your mother's daughter and your father's daughter, and help get this country going in the right direction. It's up to you. Get a hold of me if you need assistance. It's Mike at WileyInfonet.com. All right? Not too hard to find. We've got a website. It's called WileyInfonet.com, and the contact information is there. And that website should be refinished probably by the next week or so. I was wanting to get it up by February 1st. We're also going to be offering these Second Amendment shirts. We don't want to call them militia shirts because then the Democrats will go, "Oh, he's part of militia. You never got Mike Wiley." I used to be a radio talk show host, so I have to entertain. It's natural. I can't do these podcasts like some of these people. Oh yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do this, and then then we'll do this, and then I love you.